And let's go back to that breaking news. The Associated Press reporting that in a new interview, Attorney General Bill Barr says that the DOJ has not uncovered evidence of voter fraud that would change the outcome of the election. Joining me now is NBC News Justice Correspondent Pete Williams. Pete, I want to read a little bit more from this article. In an interview with the Associated Press, Bill Barr said U.S. attorneys and FBI agents have been working to follow up specific complaints and information that they've received, but they've uncovered no evidence that would change the outcome of the election. Quote, to date, we have not seen fraud on a scale that could have affected a different outcome in the election, Bill Barr told the Associated Press. Pete, you've sat down with Bill Barr a number of times. You know that he's very deliberate in what he says. Is he sending a message directly to the president with this interview?
I can't say that for sure. Perhaps not directly to the president, perhaps more to the people who have been following the president's comments. In a sense, this is Bill Barr announcing all the cats that didn't go up a tree, because the fact that this was the Justice Department and FBI's conclusions is self-evident from the fact that they haven't done anything since he originally sent that memo out empowering local prosecutors to look into allegations of fraud. And the Justice Department has disclosed the complaints, some of the complaints that they've gotten. For example, the one that people in Nevada were voting who were not residents. There was a claim of fraud. There was a letter sent to the Attorney General claiming that that was fraud. And the Justice Department said at the time that they would look into it, and nothing ever came of it. So, I mean, this was to some extent a foregone conclusion, but I think you're right. It does have some force when the Attorney General himself says, OK, we've looked into these allegations of fraud and we don't see anything. Now, I think it's also important to say that the Justice Department investigates crimes, and fraud is a crime. It's an intentional act. Now, that's a lot different than some of these claims that have been made in a lot of election lawsuits, that the system wasn't followed right or county clerks did something wrong. These are allegations of specific fraud. I guess you could say one of the biggest allegations has been one that states intentionally used a voting system that would allow them to dump in votes for Biden. This was the claim that had been advanced by Sidney Powell, for example, about the electronic voting systems. And as you note, Mike Basalmo's interview with the Attorney General, he says, the AG says that both the Department of Homeland Security and the Justice Department have looked into that. And so far, he says, we haven't seen anything to substantiate that. So, clearly he knows who's listening to him when he speaks. But I also think he's saying the obvious, that they've looked into this and they don't find anything.
Well, Chris Krebs has said that the reason is, when he was at DHS and said it now that he's no longer at DHS, that there are paper ballots to make sure that you can't just change the vote counts in the system. There are paper ballots to back up the vote counts. Pete, though, is he trying to put the genie back in the bottle here? Because he was also one of the people who was undermining the confidence in mail-in votes ahead of the election, saying that they were ripe for fraud. Now he's saying there is no fraud. It's a bit of whiplash.
Yeah, my guess is that what he's trying to do is just answer the questions from the AP. I'm not sure. I don't know if he has a larger agenda than that. But you're right. I think he raised the specter, at least, that there was something nefarious by saying people should look into it. Now he's saying it isn't. But you could also view that, I guess, as squaring the circle or completing the circle, closing the circle, saying, OK, we've heard these complaints. We've looked into them. We empowered our U.S. attorneys to look into them, and we haven't found anything.
But, Pete, he didn't have to sit down and do this interview with the Associated Press. He could have said no.
Right.
I mean, am I reading too much into it to think, the Attorney General saying yes to an interview, doesn't often do that, about this specific topic? Does it go too far to say that, I mean, it's the president's, the guy that he chose to be Attorney General,
I get where you're coming from. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I see your point. Look, I think I'm with you just maybe 1 or 2 degrees back. We're pretty much in the same place. I think you could read this as, he opened the door to this and now he's closing it.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.